Before the video starts, I want to apologise that this video is over 3 months late. It is because this video took a long time to edit.
It wasn't due to laziness or procrastination at all!
Well, it wasn't at first, but it turned into that, as well as my college work taking over. Because this video is so late, my other videos, mostly the last of my 2024 Saturday story times, are held back and delayed. I wasn't expecting to take a break for over 3 months, but it just happened. It also didn't help that when I was recording my setup for this video, I realised that I wanted to change it to something better, and during the process of editing this setup tour, I have completely changed it. I still have a load of recorded videos filmed in this setup, so don't be surprised if in some videos I am in the setup you're about to see and not in the new one. Anyway, I'm back, and here's to 2025, and actually uploading often again. But for now, here's my setup tour. Enjoy! 100 videos! In just over a year of me uploading my first video to this channel. Who knew that I would create 100 YouTube videos? This is mostly thanks to my Saturday story times, but I'm still surprised I've made this many. And to celebrate 100 videos, I'm going to show you my setup. Because the last time I showed you it, it was when I was changing it to what it is now. So let me show you my setup. First, let's start off with the thing that holds up my setup, and that is my desk. Now, looking at this, you would think that I have an L-shaped desk, but is the opposite way to how people usually have it. My desk is actually made up of an actual desk and a small 4-square Aylex unit. The original plan was to have my desk against the wall that I film my Saturday story times in front of and have the Aylex unit where my desk currently is. But due to the sizing, that couldn't happen, so instead I did it like this. And to be honest, it might not look practical, but it is very practical. Let's talk about what's on the Aylex unit. Over here is a controller charging station with one PS4 controller and one PS3 controller, and only the PS4 one actually works with this dock. I'll get into where the consoles are for this in a bit. Next to this is a little USB tower, and I use these USBs for all sorts of different things. And next to this is my tower of games. This is made up of 3 game towers, one of them that I got from a car boot sale, which I'm glad of because it came with this little headphone holder, which I hang my headphones on, as well as this PlayStation keyring and my charging cable for my phone. This doesn't look too stable, but it hasn't fallen yet, so it's sturdy. When it comes to headphones, I am using the Sony MDRZ-X310L foldable headphones. I was given these as a birthday present when I was about 13 or so, and the reason why I still use these is even though they are kinda cheap headphones, the bass on these is incredible, and I always like to have speakers in headphones that have good bass to them. So if you're ever looking for a pair of cheap-ish wired headphones, then I definitely recommend these. And this is a box full of cables. You may think that this is too many and there's no need for all of these, but throughout my life, each one of these cables has become handy in different situations. Now let's talk about the thing that runs my channel, and that is my iMac. This is a late 2014 27-inch 5K iMac. And the reason why I have a computer that is this old is because it was quite cheap on Facebook Marketplace. For graphics, it's got an AMD Radeon R9 M295X 4GB, whatever that means. Now the main reason I bought this iMac is because of the storage and the RAM. For storage, it has a 3TB Fusion drive. As you can see, I barely use this Fusion drive, but that's because I save everything to an external hard drive, which I will get onto in a bit. And for RAM, it has 32GB. Now this is the highest configuration you can have for this iMac. The original price when this iMac first came out in 2014 was over £2,000. And how much did I get this for? £360. Now, when you've got this much RAM and storage for an iMac for that price, you're not going to turn it down. Now, even though I got this for £360, this iMac unfortunately didn't come with a keyboard or mouse. But fortunately, about 3 years ago when I got my first Mac, I bought a Magic Keyboard and Magic Mouse for £50 off Facebook Marketplace. I hadn't been using them that much, and now was the perfect time to use them. Now, even though this is 10 years old,
10 years old.
it still works perfectly fine. I have it on macOS Big Sur, it runs everything I need perfectly, and with 32GB of RAM, my god is it fast. Talking of apps, let's talk about what apps I use. For editing, I use Premiere Pro and Photoshop. I do have Final Cut Pro, but I haven't really used Final Cut Pro. I've used it now and then, but not to edit a full video. I also have iMovie. Now you're probably wondering, why do I have 3 editing softwares? Well, I have Premiere Pro because I can get it free with my college account. I use Final Cut Pro for the graphics and effects because the templates on there are incredible, and I use iMovie for basic edited video sketches. Here's an example of one that I did. It's a mock sketch of how people who aren't that popular on YouTube use iMovie and all the basic effects, and you can easily tell that it was edited in iMovie and not on a professional software. So I did it for an unboxing video, because usually when you see unboxing videos on YouTube by a channel with a very small amount of subscribers, they often use iMovie and all the basic effects. So I use iMovie for the sketches so it looks authentic that it came from iMovie, because it did. Now, I don't have the latest Premiere Pro. I have Premiere Pro 2020, and I choose to stick with this for one main reason. Whenever I do subtitles, I like to have a bit of a box grey behind the words of the subtitles, like what you see in a few TV shows. Premiere Pro 2020 does this a lot better than any other version. From Premiere Pro 2022 to the latest one, it looks very different to how it does on the 2020 version, and I prefer the 2020 version. Now, this is what a typical video looks like for me. It's very different for a Saturday Storytime one because there's not that many effects, but this is what the timeline for my longest ever video looks like. As you can see, there's quite a lot of effects, but for a short reaction, it also doesn't have that much editing, but I am trying to get back into long form content like this one. I use Photoshop to edit my thumbnails because it's kind of like the standard. Whenever someone thinks of a image editing app, Photoshop is the first thing that comes to mind. Here's an example of one of my thumbnails, and as you can see, depending on what video it is, for my Saturday Storytimes, they're very basic and easy thumbnails to make. Some other ones have a lot more detail and can take longer to make. Now, for recording, I use OBS. Now, because I use a Mac, OBS is very different to recording audio from the computer. Unlike with Windows, where it can automatically do it, it can't do that with Mac, so you usually have to install a plugin. The most popular one it seems that people suggest is called Black Hole. The problem with this is that it will only capture the audio for OBS and you won't be able to hear it, so then you have to go and make it so that you and OBS can hear it, but by doing that, you can't adjust the volume. So another app that people use, which I don't think people suggest as much as they should because this one is a much better alternative, is called Loopback Audio, where you can just add in all the different apps that you are using and want to record the sound for, then you create an audio output capture and set it to Loopback Audio. And the final app that I use is Audacity to record my microphone. I think I've gone on too long about my apps now, so let's move on to some other things that are part of my setup. Now, next to my iMac is this Samsung monitor. This is the Samsung SyncMaster SA300. Now, the thing about this monitor is that it doesn't support full 1080p. It can only do 1600 by 900. But the reason why I have this monitor is because I saw it on Facebook Marketplace, just like my iMac, for only £5. It is a VGA monitor, but I didn't want to have sound coming through it anyway, so it works out fine. Plus, I prefer VGA to HDMI because I usually have my audio going to separate speakers than monitors anyway. Now let's talk about the thing that is making you hear all this right now, and that is my new microphone, the Blue Yeti. This microphone originally came out in 2009. For reference, that is 3 years after I was born. Now this microphone is still used by a lot of different content creators on loads of different platforms. And why is that? Well, this microphone is the definition of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because the audio quality from this USB microphone is still incredible. Now this microphone I again picked up on Facebook Marketplace. At this point most things are coming from it. I was originally going to get one from CEX, or SEX as it's pronounced. And the whole reason I thought again this microphone was because I saw it there. It came with the box and it was the black version of this. And it was for £65. But fortunately there was this one available online for £20. It didn't come with a box, but it did come with its little manual, and it even came with a pop filter, which doesn't come with them. It didn't come with a mini USB cable, but if we're being honest, who doesn't have one of them? Well, apparently me, because I thought I had a lot of them, but it turns out I had to get one. So fortunately the next day, went to a car boot sale, and I was able to find one, and the guy let me have it for free. When I first got this microphone, I was a bit confused as to how to use it properly. It's simple plug and play, but I wasn't too sure about what gain would be correct and what the different symbols on the back meant. But the manual for this microphone helps make it easier to understand how. And this microphone I will now be using for all my videos because the audio quality is a lot better than the audio that comes from my iPhone. Now, another thing I got recently was this Stream Deck. This is the Stream Deck XL. And this I did get from SEX, but I didn't buy it. I got it as an early birthday present from my parents. This was £150 and it came with its box. And the reason why I wanted this is because I am planning to start streaming soon. And with what I have planned to do, this will make it a lot more easier because you can hook this up to OBS and it will just make it easier to do different things on OBS than having to actually go into OBS itself. But at the moment this has been a very handy and useful piece of equipment, and I can see it being handy in the future as well for things outside of streaming. Now I mentioned before how I don't really save much to my iMac unless it's just apps, and that is because I save everything to this Samsung external SSD. This is because when I'm not editing on my iMac, I usually take all my videos into college and I can edit them on the computers in there during lunchtime. Might as well get something done with my lunchtime than just sitting and eating. Now this is a 1TB hard drive, and again I picked this up from CEX for only £70. This goes for £120 brand new. Quick side rant. Can someone tell me how the grey one is the only one that can go up to 4TB and the blue and the red can't, when the only difference between them all is the colour? Also, turns out the price is £110, not £120, but don't even get me started on the price difference for two different colours on Amazon. Yes, they are cheaper on Amazon than on Samsung's website, but the blue one is £10 more even though it is the same storage. There is a different letter in the brackets, but these are the product codes, because the colours have different ones, but that's the only other difference apart from the colour. The price of the blue one has gone down since I took the other screenshot, but it is still £7 more than the grey one. But if you thought that was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. It's £30 more than on Samsung's website. Quick side rant over. I actually have a second one that I got, again from CEX, but this one I use for personal stuff, but my main one is just used for YouTube. Now the thing is, everything on this hard drive I don't have a backup of. You would think I would, since I have an iMac that has 3TB and I'm only using 500GB on this hard drive, but I just can't be bothered doing all that copying and everything. Plus, I am very careful with this thing. This is the piece of equipment that I am most delicate with than anything else I own. Mostly because before I bought this, I had a hard drive and I dropped it and it got a head crash and I have lost everything on it. So even though this is an SSD and I will never be buying hard drives again, only solid state drives, I'm still careful with it just in case. But if I lose this, my channel is basically f***ed. Even though on my phone I still keep the original video recordings, anything that has been edited I do not have a copy of. So if this gets lost, my channel gets put on pause for quite a while. Now, next to my iMac, we have just some shelves, and they are the messiest thing in my setup. I won't really go into detail, not like I haven't already with a lot of stuff, but this is just literally a load of different stuff that you don't really see because I cover it in my Saturday story times with a monitor, so it doesn't really need to be that clean. Now above that, I have a lot of different things. A few different files, nothing in particular. A rack of CDs that is tilting, but there's nothing that can be done about the tilting. This just contains all the CDs that I either listened to recently or I'm planning to listen to soon. Even though it is tilting a lot, it surprisingly hasn't fallen yet, and it doesn't seem like it's going to anytime soon, but you never know. Now next to this I have another monitor. This was the first widescreen monitor I ever bought. It is an Acer 17-inch monitor. That's just 2 inches more than my MacBook screen. Now this is what I use to hook up my phone to. This is so I can get an external display and I can see what you can see, to make sure everything's in frame and I'm still in shot, and to make sure it hasn't stopped recording. I didn't get this monitor from Facebook Marketplace, I got it from a car boot sale, and it was £2. Me and my mum went to sell at a boot sale, and on the way out I saw it, and I wanted it so bad that I cried for it. Keep in mind though that I was very young at the time. Now to connect my phone to this monitor, I just have a Lightning 2 VGA adapter. The reason is because this monitor only does VGA, but I have had this adapter for years.
Story time!
I've had it since I was in primary school, and the reason is because my primary school was switching from Apple TVs to these, from wireless to wired connections. I don't know why, because when I went back for work experience they had gone back to Apple TVs. And I asked the deputy head teacher once if I could borrow one, because it was one that was in our assembly hall that we barely used. And he said, yeah, I can borrow it as much as I want. I borrowed it quite often, and I used it to hook my iPad to things like the TV. And for my birthday, my parents got me this adapter. I think this is one of the first few Apple products I've actually owned. Behind that I have a little ring light, and here I have a little soft toy puffin. This was given to me by one of my mum's friends when she went on holiday. I've got this little dolphin that's made out of pom-poms that I got from when I went to Cardiff. And I have this other pom-pom with eyes that I can't remember where I went to get it. Now another thing I have are these two speakers. Now these are by a company called Genius, and even though they look old, they are genius. Like with my microphone, the audio quality is amazing, especially compared to other speakers I've owned. And again, I picked these up on Facebook Marketplace. A guy was actually giving away a box of different cables, a monitor, and these speakers all for free. I gave away the monitor because I had a lot at the time, kept some of the cables, and kept these speakers, and I have been using them ever since. Now here we have an aux switcher. I'll get into more about this later on, but above that we have a little figurine from one of my favourite PS3 games, Heavy Rain. So that's this desk. Now let's talk about the large Kallax unit that is behind my desk. I won't really get into too much detail about what's in each of these because if I'm being honest, it's mostly just random stuff. But there is a little shelf for different books. I didn't really know what to put on this shelf, so I just put some random books I own. This is a giant drawer of cables, the second one, and this is just a load of different files. Now above the Kallax unit there is my Power Mac G3 from 1999, as well as my iMac G5, and a new iMac that I bought last year, which is an iMac G4. I'm still into collecting iMacs, and I do want to collect the iMac G3, but I've only just made enough space for these ones, never mind that. There's nothing really too special about these. Well, there is a lot special about these, but you get what I mean. There's nothing too much to talk about that you don't already know, to be honest. So let's talk about the unit that is next to this, and that is my bookshelf. Now, I'm not going to show you what's behind because if I'm being honest, the reason why I have covered it with cardboard is because it is very messy. I've been trying to tidy it up a bit. It just has a few books and a lot of DVDs because I'm a DVD person. I don't have Netflix, I don't have Hulu, and my mum has Disney Plus, but she is using her friend's account, and that's only to watch Grey's Anatomy. So I'm a DVD guy, and I just keep this cardboard over top of it to cover it up to make it a lot more tidier and better to look at when I'm recording videos. And above the bookshelf is just a load of random stuff. which is why I keep it out of shot when I'm recording. Now usually when I'm recording, I'm in front of this bookshelf, but when I'm not recording, I have my CD player in front of it. This is the Panasonic Power Blaster. I fell in love with the design of this CD player because when I was young, it seemed that everywhere had it. My primary school, the local library, and a lot more places seemed to have it. And to me, this is a big part of my childhood because everywhere I went, there was this CD player. I was very fortunate to go to a car boot sale, well, it was indoors, and a guy was selling this for £15. It does have a few dents and everything, but I took the chance, because online these go for quite a lot more, and plus this was the first time I'd seen one in person since I was very young. So I jumped at the opportunity, and I am so glad I did. I've actually featured this on my channel before, and I will continue to be using it as a prop in the future. Now let's talk about the chair I use. In my last setup I had a big chair, but since I've moved things about and the space has gotten a little smaller, I've got this chair. Now while it looks like your typical office chair, looks can be deceiving because this chair is so comfy. I love this chair. I still have my old chair, it's at my setup at my dad's, but this chair is the perfect size for this setup and it is so comfy. I don't think I'll ever spend money on a gaming chair or anything, no matter how much PewDiePie says that my chair can't do what his does.
Oh yeah? But can you do this?
Or the fact that it's not $3.99.
It's $3.99!
But this chair was for quite cheap. I think it was about £45. When I was moving my room about, my mum saw this in a charity shop, but I am so glad she got this chair, and I could not wish for a better chair. Now let's talk about my lighting. I've already shown you one of my ring lights, but I have two more ring lights. These I both picked up from a shop called Pound Stretcher, which the ring lights were literally called content creator lights. The thing about these lights is, it says that they are originally £20 and they are on sale for £10, but I got these lights over a year ago and they're still apparently on sale. I think Pound Stretcher is making it so that it looks like you're getting a deal when they're just keeping it at that price. Now usually I just keep these lights by my CD player when I'm not recording, but when I am recording, I set them up like this. This one holds my phone, this one is just for lighting, and the small ring light is just for lighting. The reason I have it like this is so I have lighting from 3 different angles to make sure that I and my background are all lit. Now my setup is just in a corner of my bedroom, but over by my bed I have a little table that has my gaming consoles on. This is where my PS4 and PS3 are, as well as a PS2. Unfortunately though, the only controls I have for my PS2 are wired ones, so I keep having to move this, but I keep it here so they're all in one place. The reason why I had them so far away is because, as we all know, the PS4 is infamous for being quite loud with the fans. And by having it far away, I can usually hear the fans, but not as loud as if it was right next to me. Now with it being this far away, I have a few HDMI cables that run into a HDMI switcher, which then runs to another HDMI cable, which runs to another HDMI switcher. Now why do I have 2? Well, this one is to choose between the 3 consoles, and this one is to choose between my iMac and the console that is selected. Which brings me on to something that you might have seen on my desk, and that is this remote. With one press of a button, it changes what the input is. Now as well as live streaming, I'm hoping to get into some gaming content soon, and if I go into OBS, I have set it up so that when I press the button, it will automatically change the input that OBS is to record as well, which saves a lot of time. Now while this does change the audio, like I said, I use VGA and have a separate speaker system, but I have it set up so that with this aux switch, aux 1 is my iMac and aux 2 is whatever the HDMI selector is selected on. Now on top of my PS4, I have a Sony DVD and Blu-ray player, but I have it away from my setup, so my setup is a bit more tidier. I don't have a TV, and to be honest, I don't need a TV, because playing on my Samsung monitor is just fine. And even though it isn't in full 1080p, you can't really tell the difference. I don't know about you, but I think I've been over-explaining a lot.
Well, No shit.
Oh, and for those of you who watched my last setup tour, you would know that I had a little soft toy dog, and I called him my audience because I had him by my camera. But where is he in this setup? Well, even though I don't have him near my camera as my audience anymore, he's still here. You could say that the puffin and the other figures are my new audience. New setup, new audience. But he will always be my original audience. So, that's my setup. It's not really the best setup, but hey, it works fine for me. Everything in this setup has helped me get through 100 videos, with a lot more to come. Hopefully I'll get into some gaming content and live streams in the future, and you can bet that I've got a lot more reactions coming. So what do you think about my setup? Well, it doesn't really matter if people think it's not good, as long as it gets the job done. Who cares? But, until next time, goodbye!